dive deeper into this very topic with Ambassador Kurt Volker, who served as the U.S. Special Representative for Ukraine negotiations from 2017 to 2019 and was the U.S. Ambassador to NATO from 2008 to 2009. Ambassador, thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
As I just, pointed out to Tom, and he and I were discussing, the timing of this is suspicious. 2 months to the day after that short-lived uprising helmed by Prigozhin himself. So can we just start with the question on everybody's mind? Was this a public execution? And did Russian President Putin have anything to do with it?
Absolutely. There's no question. There's no question that Putin's rebellion against the leadership in Russia 2 months ago weakened Putin dramatically. It showed that there was great discontent in the military, in the Wagner Group. He was welcomed in Rostov. He was welcomed in Voronezh. He was driving to Moscow. I think he concluded it was probably going to be too much to try to get into the Kremlin, and he and Putin negotiated an end to that uprising on the same day. But that in itself doesn't mean it was over. In Putin's mind, that kind of action is unacceptable. And it was clear to me from that day that he was going to then go ahead and try to kill Prigozhin. We didn't know when or how, but we knew it was coming.
Yeah, I imagine for the past couple months, Putin has felt probably more vulnerable than he has in a long time and been licking his wounds since. Since he came to power 23 years ago, a lot of Putin's enemies have died mysteriously. In recent years, several oligarchs, former allies of the Russian president, have died in sudden and very high-profile ways. I know you said he has something to do with it, but even if he didn't have anything to do with it, let's just say, will this crash spook people within Putin's inner circle?
It's certainly going to give everybody pause who might be thinking that, well, Putin is leading us, down a terrible path in this war in Ukraine. It's destroying our country. We've lost half our military. We're losing our economy. We can't travel. We can't use our credit cards abroad. So there's a great deal of discontent with Putin's war here. And yet at the same time, I think he's trying to make clear to everybody, you can't walk out of this. I am leading this and you are in here with me.
And what does this mean for the Wagner Group moving forward? I mean, are we going to see them rebel?
Well, I think what we're going to see is the Kremlin is going to try to reconstitute the Wagner Group into a new entity that it can control. It had lost control of Prigozhin and lost control of the Wagner Group as it was. These are hardened fighters who do Russia's bidding, but now they're kind of rogue. They want to get them back under control. Some of them will probably be brought into the military as trainers. Others will stay in a mercenary style formation, but under tighter control in the Kremlin. They do want the Wagner Group in its new form to continue to be active in Africa and to advance Russia's interests abroad.
Yeah, and I want to talk about time, moving forward now. A couple months ago, when this was happening, over the course of that weekend when we were all watching this uprising take place, I think a lot of people across the world were almost rooting for Prigozhin to overtake Putin, but his Wagner troops have also played a key role in invading Ukraine. I mean, these are not good guys either. So in the wake of his death, how does this impact the war and the invasion moving forward? How do things change?
Yeah, so not good guys is a bit of an understatement. They are absolutely horrible, and they are responsible for a lot of war crimes that were committed in Ukraine. And they even are brutal to each other. Any kind of disloyalty was punished by death in the Wagner Group. They have been off the battlefield in Ukraine since the early summer. They complained bitterly that they were not getting the ammunition that they needed from the Ministry of Defense, that the regular Russian forces were incompetent and they were doing the heavy fighting. They took tremendous casualties and then they walked and then went into Russia instead. And they have not been on the battlefield in Ukraine since then. I think that situation would have already been likely to continue. But now I think it's almost guaranteed that we're only going to see the regular Russian military in Ukraine now. And as we see, it's not going very well for Russia.
Yeah. Ambassador Kurt Volker, thank you so much. As always, I know a lot of people, when this notification came through yesterday, were shocked, but maybe not surprised by it. So we appreciate your insights this morning.
Thanks so much for having me.